members, staff, students from across the country have joined this program. This program is also being live streamed on all the social media platforms of UGC across the country. Friends, this is the national webinar on the life and times of Netaji Subhas Chandra Bose. Today is the 126th birth anniversary of Netaji Subhas Chandra Bose. In 2021, Government of India has decided to celebrate the birthday on the 23rd day of January every year as Parakram Divas to honor and remember Netaji's indomitable spirit, selfless service to the nation, and also to inspire people of the country, especially the youth, to act with fortitude in the face of adversity as Netaji did, and to infuse in them a spirit of patriotic fervor. To speak about the life and the times of Netaji Subhas Chandra Bose with all of us, today we have speakers, very well-known speakers. Our first speaker is Professor Smriti Kumar Sarkar. He is former Vice Chancellor, University of Burdwan, and a National Fellow in Indian Council for Historical Research, and a Professor of Indian History, Kalyani University, West Bengal. He will be speaking on the mission, vision, and the ideas of Netaji Subhas Chandra Bose. Our second speaker is Professor Purabi Rai, who is acknowledged as one of the foremost Netaji researchers. We are very honored and privileged that we have such great researchers with us on this platform to speak on the life and the contributions made by Netaji. Professor Purabi Rai, former professor at the Department of International Relations, Jadavpur University, and he was a former visiting professor of Moscow State University and St. Petersburg University. She has authored several articles on Netaji Subhas Chandra Bose. Her contribution as member in the Indian Council of Historical Research has been phenomenal. She will be speaking on the Indian National Army or Azad Hind Fauj Intelligence Service. Two very interesting topics by two well-known researchers on the life of Netaji Subhash Bose. Each speaker will speak for about 15 to 20 minutes, and we will also take questions from the audience. You can post your questions on our social media chat box, and those questions will be collected and sent to me by our UGC officials. Friends, while I invite very warmly our eminent panelists to deliver their talk, I also would like to very briefly share with you that several competitions and events have been organized as a run-up to Parakram Divas. UGC has written to all the colleges and universities to encourage the students to take part on the poem writing competition, poster competition, essay competition, and selfie competition by January 20th. The best 25 entries will get cash awards and an opportunity to visit the Republic Day parade in New Delhi. A nationwide painting competition also is being held today in 500 Kendriya Vidyalayas on Parakram Divas. Today, our Honorable Prime Minister will unveil the model of national memorial dedicated to Netaji to be constructed on Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose Dweep in Andaman and Nicobar. Also, the Ministry of Defense and Ministry of Tribal Affairs are jointly organizing the military tattoo and tribal dance performance in Jawaharlal Nehru Stadium in New Delhi on 23rd, 24th January 2023, being showcased under the banner Adi Shaurya Parv Parakramaka. Themed as military tattoo and tribal dance, this event is aimed at throwing light on the contribution of Netaji Subhas Chandra Bose to our freedom struggle. Friends, there are many things that we can learn from the life of Netaji Subhas Chandra Bose for his persistent efforts, for his selfless service to obtain freedom for our country. I now invite the first panelist to make his presentation in about 20 minutes, Professor Smriti Kumar Sarkar.
Namaskar. Thank you, sir. So I'll be speaking on Netaji Subhas Chandra Bose, mission, vision, and ideals. As you recall, Netaji Subhas Chandra Bose on 23rd January every year, what has been very aptly described by our honorable Prime Minister as Parakram Divas, two basic tenets of life loom large before us. One is Deshabhakti, another is Parakrami Shakta, devotion to motherland and this courageous self. But at the same time, it makes us sorry when we see that the popular narrative that has filtered down to the school text of freedom struggle has virtually pushed him to the margin. The dominant notion of Mil Gayi Azadi Hame Bina Kharg Bina Ghal undermines the role of armed struggle against British colonial power in India, which began almost simultaneously with the empire building process. It took different forms in different regions till all these marched into the great tumult of 1857 and was followed by widespread revolutionary movements as conceived by Aurobindo Ghosh and Veer Savarkar. Non-violent resistance that way effectively started in 1970. In Subhas Chandra Bose, we thus see the culmination of the long-drawn armed resistance to British rule, initiated by the sannyasis of Bengal, Rani Chennamma of Karnataka, Veer Surendra Sai of Odisha, Rani Lakshmi Bai of Jhansi, Veer Narayan Singh of Chhattisgarh, and other well-known heroes of the Great Revolt of 1857 and later-day revolutionaries. Bose forced the British to fight their toughest land battle on Indian soil during the Second World War against 1 lakh strong INA, Indian National Army, headed by the Japanese forces. The immediate problems that he encountered to organize this final blow to the empire marked his leadership qualities. Shaho Nawaz Khan, an A-category INA prisoner, testified during the Red Fort trial, I quote, that when Netaji arrived in Singapore, I was hypnotized by his personality and his speeches. He placed the true picture of India before us. For the first time in my life, I saw India through the eyes of an Indian. Patriot of the patriots to Gandhi and Deshonayak to Tagore, Netaji's charisma during the trial reached every Indian home and nooks and corner of Southeast Asia. Ninth child of a middle-class family, he lived in Cuttack amidst poor Muslim neighbors. This rare mix of the tradition of a pious literary family on the one side and a poor neighborhood helped him get the best of the both sides, quest for knowledge and a down-to-earth approach to life, while it saved him from being pampered. About the early influences he wrote, I quote, I was barely 15 when Vivekananda entered my life, and through his writings, initiated the celestial message of Atmano Mokshartham Jagat Hitaya. His moksha, that is life's mission, was self-effacing service to the motherland as conceptualized by Sri Aurobindo. In academic brilliance, he was unsurpassed by his political contemporaries. A born genius, he ranked fourth in the ICS examination at the age of 22 in frail health with just 8 months preparation that took years even for the tip-toppers of Oxford and Cambridge. But this stunning success put him in a crisis of conscience. Should he sacrifice his life's mission, that is liberation of India, to the service of the Raj as an ICS officer? His family and friends were on the one side, but he was steadfast with his ideals. And following Aurobindo Ghosh, Subhas Chandra resigned from ICS, which was considered at that time the heavenly born service. Bose was a man of exemplary courage. The way he exited from Calcutta by hoodwinking the British police in the guise of Muhammad Ziauddin, the Pathan life insurance inspector, up to Lahore and then to Peshawar as a deaf and dumb, since he didn't know the local language Pashto, is comparable only with Shivaji Maharaj's escape from Mughal imprisonment centuries earlier. From Peshawar to Kabul, it was a horrendous journey, a combo of trek along the Hindu Kush, mule ride here, and a truck hiking there. In Kabul, he had very difficult times till he entered Russia on an Italian passport as Orlando Majota. British officials could not fix his real motive. A Calcutta cable thus warned London that he would never cease to do his utmost to achieve what has been his life's aim, that is complete independence of India. In 1941, Churchill government thus directed Britain's Special Operations Executive to assassinate him if he passed through Iran, Iraq, and Turkey. But the greater feat of his courage was his escape from Germany in a U-180 submarine with his personal secretary, Abid Hassan Safrani, under the nose of British Navy via the Cape of Good Hope, which involved the first civilian submarine transfer during the Second World War at Madagascar, where he was shifted to a Japanese submarine. From Kiev in Germany to Japan, it took him 93 days under marine journey. Subhas Chandra Bose had a clear vision of free India. Many people call him adventurer, but if you look at his idea of free India, you will be surprised simply. His political career in India was meteoric. After securing his tripos degree from Cambridge University, he returned to India in 1921. And by 1938, he was already unanimously elected the Congress president. And Gandhi was very happy with this apostol of Indian youth. Still, he defeated his presidential candidate, Pattabhi Sitaramaiah, at the Tripuri Congress by a sizable majority. In his two successive speeches as Congress president, Bose made an incisive analysis of the problem that afflicted India. He set up a national planning committee with Jawaharlal Nehru, his socialist colleague, as chairman, precursor to the planning commission. To him, industrialization was the panacea of Indian poverty. Subhas Chandra stated, quote, "However much we may dislike modern industrialism and condemn the evils which follow in its train, we cannot go back to the pre-industrial era, even if we desire to do so," unquote. On the issue of religious differences in India, he advocated equal respect for all communities rather than hard separation of religion from politics as or secularism. For greater integration of multilingual, multi-ethnic India, he suggested cultural autonomy for different linguistic zones, with Hindi as the lingua franca of free India, which Gandhi had stated much earlier in Hind Swaraj. Of the front-ranking political leaders of India, Subhas was the first to talk about population control, advocated land reforms, abolition of landlordism, and provision of cheap rural credit to address the problem of rural indebtedness. Unlike Gandhi, who suggested liquidation after freedom, liquidation of Congress after freedom, Subhas visualized a key role for the Congress in the reconstruction of free India. But there was an important part. I quote, if its democratic structure was maintained and leaders were not thrust upon the people from above, but were elected from below. Subhas Chandra Bose was a man of real politics. He did not have much faith in constitutional experimentalism of the 1930s. He argued that by juxtaposing autocratic princes with democratically elected representatives of British India, London was actually planning to turn India into a political mosaic. Hence, immediately after his unanimous election as the Congress president, 1938, he proclaimed, quote, there is no power on earth that can keep India enslaved anymore. India shall be free. Bose has been downplayed for his joining the Axis bloc. Communists did not even hesitate to call him Tojo's dog. When the war broke out and they found that the Congress was still vacillating in its response, Bose told its leaders that Indians were losing a rare opportunity to strike the empire at its weakest moment. To Gandhi, he wrote, quote, against a brutal foe like the British, no amount of civil disobedience or of sabotage, of revolutionary terrorism can be of any avail. The enemy has already drawn the sword. Hence, he must therefore be fought with the sword. For that, India needed positive support from the enemies of the empire, no matter to which bloc they belonged. In quest of that support, Bose traveled nearly half of the world, but it was very difficult to achieve. In Russia, Stalin cold-shouldered him, which pushed him to Germany by Austria and Italy. In Berlin, he met Goebbels and Hitler, started Azad Hind Fauj, immortalized for his mesmerizing call from Berlin, give me blood, I will give you freedom. He was handed over Indian powers captured in North Africa, but the much desired Axis declaration in favor of Indian independence did not come. After Germany's debacle at Stalingrad, that was not to be hoped, and hence he turned to the east, where a new possibility had opened up with Japan's occupation of Myanmar. He left Germany for Japan in 1943. Japanese leadership accepted him as the undisputed leader of Indian freedom struggle. Tokyo-based Indian revolutionary Rash Bihari Bose made him the leader of the Indian League by dropping Captain Mohan Singh, with whom Japanese generals had some problems. Bose reorganized it into Azad Hind Fauj with Indian powers in Southeast Asia under Japan. The provisional free government of Free India was established with Netaji Subhas Chandra Bose as the Prime Minister of undivided India on 21st October 1943 at Singapore. He hoisted the tricolour at Port Blair, Andaman and Nicobar Islands that were handed over to him by Japan. This was followed by the declaration of an all-out war against the British and the INA, led two front attacks from their Rangoon base to Imphal and Kohima on the Indian frontier, which lasted for 80 days. The rest is history. Now, let's look at the other side. These are mostly known. Let's look at the other side of the story, how we have, described Netaji in the narrative. That is most important. In 1994, Peter Ward Fay named his well-researched book on the INA as The Forgotten Army. Peter was quite fair because 4 years later in 1998, a 600-page, very well-circulated book on Indian freedom struggle by a group of leading Indian historians dismissed the INA's war efforts in just 7 lines. I feel tempted to quote the lines. Quote, one INA battalion commanded by Shaho Nawaz was allowed to accompany the Japanese army to the Indo-Burma front and participate in the Imphal campaign. but the discriminatory treatment, which included being denied rations, arms, and being made to do menial work for the Japanese units, completely demoralized the INA men. The failure of the Imphal campaign and the steady Japanese retreat thereafter quashed any hopes of the INA liberating the nations. So this is the treatment the INA received from a bunch of leading Indian historians in 1998. The same INA who laid down thousands of lives for their motherland in Southeast Asia, raised the first Omen regiment, and gave the nation its postmark salutation, Joy Hind. Just compare this submission with what Encyclopedia Britannica referred to the INA's war on the Indian front in its recently updated article, 14th August 2021. I quote, in 1943, Bose's Indian National Army, alongside Japanese troops, advanced to Rangoon and thence overland into India, reaching Indian soil on March 18, 1944, and moving into Kohima and the plains of Imphal. In a stubborn battle, the mixed Indian and Japanese forces, lacking Japanese air support, were defeated and forced to retreat. The Indian National Army, nevertheless, for some time, succeeded in maintaining its identity as a liberation army based in Burma and then Indochina. This is from Encyclopedia Britannica. Now the question comes, why the sacrifice of the INA heroes led by Bose has been painted in half-tones? The reason is the Subhas Chandra Bose does not fit into the dominant narrative of the freedom at midnight believed to have been achieved by non-violent means. Gandhi-Bose divide was certainly a factor, but that was not all. Bose's drift towards socialist models and ideals was accepted by Gandhi, since he knew that his most loved one, Jawaharlal Nehru, was also a visionary socialist. That both Bose and Nehru led the lefts within the Congress. The core issue was Bose's uncompromising anti-colonialism, which was irreconcilable to, that cannot be reconciled to non-violent agitation. Bose wrote, I quote, as Congress president, that is in 1938, I did my best to stiffen the opposition of the Congress party to any compromise with Britain. And this caused annoyance in certain circles, who were then looking forward to compromise with British government. In 1941, when Subhas was for an all-out movement against the British, Gandhi, given the fragile nature of Indian society, considered the time unfit for that, and he directed provincial leaders first to put their house in order. On the other hand, Bose believed that all internal squabbles would be swept away once the real mass struggle started. A few years later, Bose was proved true when communal rifts marched into nationwide united protest against the Redford trial of the INA heroes. Once again, Calcutta streets saw the united march by Hindus and Muslims against the death of the INA prisoner Abdul Rashid in the airport, in the Red Fort. In 1941, I recall, in 1941, Churchill had ordered Bose's assassination as he was an inveterate opponent of His Majesty's government. So for the British, even the nationalist protest must follow a Lakshmana Rekha, but Subhas had crossed all limits. By organizing former soldiers of Indian Army, British Indian Army, into the largest anti-imperial armed forces, INA, Bose had destabilized the bedrock of the empire. Loyalty, that is the loyalty of the Indian soldiers, upon which the British had built up and sustained their empire so far. The subsequent revolt of the British Indian Navy proved that Bose was on the right track. In the 1940s, when the entire nation looked fragile, with communal rifts writ large on the platter, Bose's INA represented true India by rising above regionalism, communalism, and the martial, non-martial divide of the Indian people, which Britain had so laboriously cultured among the Indians for years. Subhas Chandra could unite all of them to fight against their common foe, including women. He could unite all of them, including women, to fight against their common foe amidst unbearable sufferings. And the sense of unity that he generated among his men outlived him. Journalist B. Shivarao reported after meeting the INA prisoners at Delhi, I quote, "There is not even the slightest feeling among them of Hindu and Muslim. A majority of the people now awaiting trial in the Red Fort is Muslim. Some of these men are bitter that Mr. Jinnah is still keeping alive a controversy about Pakistan." When Gandhi visited these prisoners in the Red Fort, he had the same experience. He was told that in INA, they didn't feel any distinction of creed or religion. But here, we are faced with Hindu-tea and Muslim-tea. "Why do you suffer?" Gandhi asked. "Why do you suffer it?" Gandhi asked them. They said, "We don't. We mix Hindu tea and Muslim tea, half and half, and then serve." The same was with food. The people on the streets also shared the same feeling of the prisoners. In spite of Reuters propaganda and complete news blackout, Bose emerged as a loved hero of the people across the country. In 1945, walls of the Madras street were decorated with posters with life-size photograph of Netaji embossed on the map of India, superscribed with "Azad Hind Fauj Jindabad, our liberator Subhash Babu Jindabad," written in both Hindi and English. ASIR, a witness at Red Fort trial, recollected, I quote, "The INA had literally burst on the country, and the whole country, from the Himalayas to Cape Comorin, was aflame with an enthusiastic fervor unprecedented in its history," unquote. Gandhi also admitted that Bose's INA raised the entire nation to a new level of consciousness. Khurshid Ben, granddaughter of Dadabhai Nauroji, the grand old man of India, thus admitted to French journalist Louis Fischer that, I quote, "If Bose entered India at the head of an Indian army, he could rally the whole country, since Bose was more popular than Nehru and in certain circumstances had a stronger appeal than Gandhi," unquote. In the penultimate phase, when Gandhi is said to have lamented that all his yes men turned overnight into no man, his rebellious son, who was the first to call him father of the nation, surfaced in public memories. A contemporary observer stated, "As the euphoria of independence was swept away by the horror of partisan violence, a traumatized people lamented the void left by the loss of a unifying leader." The same spirit reflects in a biographical note recently published. On the 15th August 1947, when the Union Jack was replaced by the Indian tricolor, I quote, "Subhas Chandra Bose had an uncanny presence in popular imagination. Calendar art from that period depicted him high in the heavens above the Red Fort, observing the independence ceremonies, while the gaudier images showed him offering his severed head to Mother India, the ultimate sacrifice to her freedom." But Subhas Chandra Bose continued to haunt the power centers across the world, unhappy with him. In a book review, 2011, Times Literary Supplement referred to Bose, quote, "an intellectual and cosmopolitan, a revolutionary, but a misled nationalist." I repeat, an intellectual and a cosmopolitan, a revolutionary, but a misled nationalist. Look at this brand of misled nationalist sealed by Churchill's government in 1941 gets echoed even 70 years after. The empire was so dear to the British. The point to draw attention to is that the same colonial branding of misled nationalists or misdirected nationalists continued to be used against Subhas Chandra Bose by the post-colonial Indian bureaucracy and academia till India experienced yet another tryst with destiny in May 2014, to borrow the editorial caption of London's The Guardian. Let me conclude this lecture with Netaji's own words written in 1940. I quote, "To draw attention to is that in this mortal world, everything perishes and will perish, but ideas, ideals, and dreams do not. In this mortal world, everything perishes and will perish, but ideas, ideals, and dreams do not." A follower of Swami Vivekananda, he believed that idea for which one individual was prepared to die would incarnate itself in 1,000 lives. Jai Hind.
Professor Sarkar, thank you very much for your brief but very comprehensive lecture on Netaji. We will come back to you when we take up the questions from the audience. I now invite Professor Purabhi Rai to give the next lecture.
Thank you.
We can hear you, Professor Rai. You can go ahead.
Okay. Thank you. Can I start my presentation?
Yes, ma'am. Please go ahead.
This is a greeting from Purabhi Rai to all, because today is Parakram Divas. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am. We can hear you and we can see the.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
There are some little difficulties, technical difficulties. So please bear with us. And whenever you don't hear me, please tell us.
Yes, yes. Absolutely. No problem at all.
No, Indian National Army is not a forgotten chapter. It is the obliterated pages of history remained untouched for 75 years. For some reason or other, this particular chapter of Netaji's life, the last part of his performance, been absolutely remained as a, not as a declassified, but classified documents. After a long trouble, few papers have come out. And on that basis, I'm going to give few examples from that paper because time is very short. I've been given only 20 minutes. So within that time, I have to cover all the things. Anyway, let us go back to the history of Japan. That in the year 1904 and 5, Japan occupied practically all the islands of Russia. And after that, it became that this is the first harbinger of resurgence, Asian resurgence. Indian people, they look with admiration that today is a time that Asia is having a power, and Asia is going to help us. So the Asian continent emerges that time in a very attractive way. And the thing is, at that time, India was struggling with the revolutionaries to free their country. Indian revolutionaries defined that Japan is having a good relation with the United Kingdom, and Indo-British has got a good relation with Japan also. So the revolutionaries, Indian revolutionaries, they started taking shelter there in Japan. The revolutionary from Gadar Party from San Francisco, America, revolutionaries from other places, they assembled there. Bhagwan Singh, then Avani Mukherjee, then Harambalal Mitro from Berlin Committee, and like others, like this, a group of revolutionaries, they assembled in Japan. By this time, Rashbihari Bose, who also thought that I also get a chance to go and I have to start my revolutionary activities from Japan itself with the help of my colleagues, so comrades. So he arrived in Japan in 1915, set out for Japan and arrived there with all difficulties. And in Japan, there is a Black Dragon Society, which was controlled by Toyama. And all these comrades like Bhagwan Singh and Barkatullah and Avani Mukherjee, they all assembled together to do something for India's freedom. Now, first thing is that they thought that this is a new voice of Asia. And what was their program? Their program, just to make the people understand on who are residing in East Asia, and these East Asian Indians especially, they should get the proper idea that what they are supposed to do for the how to liberate India, but not to take part in the war, because already war has started. Rashbihari Bose started making meetings one after the other and informing the people that join with us morally, ethically. That will be much more help to continue our revolution and to how to free our motherland. So that way, New Voice of Asia, they started their program and finished in 1942 in Bangkok, naming that this is the Indian Independence League. So the Independent Indian IIL was established. In the meantime, Tojo, General Tojo, he was taking one of the other countries in East Asia, one after the other. And he brought back around 90,000 POW, that they are the British, they were the British Indian Army who were captured by Tojo and handed over to our Rashbihari Bose. Now, Rashbihari Bose was thinking that how to manage with these 90,000 POW. They were thinking about to give to a leader like Mohan Singh, because he was Major General there in that side, but he escaped and came and joined this side. But Rashbihari suggested that we better call Subhas Chandra Bose to come and join and give the lead. By that time, Subhas left India and he was negotiating with Hitler and Mussolini while making the Free Indian Legion in Germany and Centro Military India in Italy with a small number of people. But he was not satisfied with this leadership and not getting a proper help from Germany. And he decided that better to leave this place, but he was not finding any opening there. In the meantime, he came to know that from Japan, Rashbihari Bose is calling him, that the Secret Service Inouye, Major General Inouye of Japan, he was controlling that area in Europe. And he came and he said that this is the thing Rashbihari is requesting you to go to Japan. So in 1942, Subhash started his journey, arrived in Japan, and Rashbihari took him to Tojo. It took 20 days to meet him. Subhash was waiting for the meeting, but Tojo was in a dilemma. He was not prepared mentally to receive Tojo. Somehow or other they met, and after meeting, Tojo was very much impressed by Subhash that yes, he can give the lead to these 90,000 people. So after handing over that 90,000, the Liberation Army, Subhash got the responsibility to organize the Revolutionary Army and the Liberation Army. Because Indian National Army is a liberation army. It's a revolutionary context, one has to think in that manner. So in 23rd July of 1943, Subhash announced Indian National Army in Singapore. And just after that, on 21st October, Arzi Hukumate Azad Hind. Now, problem is getting 90,000 POW, where to go and how to manage with these people and all. This is a real strategy of Subhas Chandra Bose. By that time, Tojo freed Andaman and Nicobar Islands, the strategic points and the strategic opening of India on the other side, which was previously British, occupied by the British. So he just proposed that if you can donate me or to give me this Andaman and Nicobar Islands so that I can put my army there and I can make Arzi Hukumate Azad Hind, that is the Provisional Government of Free India. And that is how Provisional Government of Free India started footing step, the first footing step at the gate, on the strategic gate at the opening of India, British India. So after getting that, he was arranging all his army. Then he said that I'm going to make it a provisional government. I got a land, Andaman and Nicobar. I got the population, 90,000 or whatever it is. Now I'm going to make the government. And that was the time he started printing notes, and mint was established, government was operating, schools, colleges, roads. Today you are seeing the Andaman roads and the whole government's, the construction that was initially made by the British, and then that was had many changes by Subhas Chandra Bose, by his commissioner, Loganathanandan, within that short period. And he was asking that about the permission of the whole thing. Strategically, Tojo just gave, but he never transferred the whole thing in the hands of Subhas Chandra Bose. That was Lebra. He find out from her findings that never been handed over. So that way, on the recognition side, he started asking that now I have done the provisional government, Arzi Hukumate Azad Hind, and I need some recognition from different countries. Like Germany, Italy, and all these Axis powers, they immediately gave the recognition. Somehow or other, USSR was interested because in Europe, the war situation was dividing the countries, and Germany and France both were trying to eliminate Russia from the European land. I'm not going to that detail, but somehow or other, I think that USSR took the chance and they recognized Arzi Hukumate Azad Hind. Of course, Subhash wrote a letter to them also, which he sent through the embassy of Japan's embassy. And Japan was also that time having a good relation with Soviet Union. Now, this is the background which I'm coming. Now, INA was essentially a revolutionary organization. And this, any revolutionary movement can never be fulfilled without the intelligence service. So intelligence service is the main thing which worked there. And this intelligence service has got its own way of operation with the mastermind of Subhas Chandra Bose. Now, and any independence mean that any service of this is external, internal, and execution should be there. So, and the Bahadur Group became the Intelligence Service Center, and the Swaraj Institute was established to give the training to the people. At the same time, as a reformer, Subhas started making Rani Jhansi Regiment, then Balok and Balika the Bal Sena, and out of that 45 Bal Senas were sent to Tokyo for their training. And one thing we have to go a little back, that in 38, 39, when he was elected president of the Indian National Congress, 38, when he was in a full swing, he found that only with the rightists, they won't be able to win freedom. They need the help of the left, because it was already the left side, the left movement has taken a very good place in India. So he started organizing a left consolidation committee in 1939. And when these sort of things were going on, he has been thrown out from, there was a dispute and all, I'm not going there. In 39, the second time elected president, he has just stepped down from his position, organized his LCC, or the Left Consolidation Committee, and he formed his own party, Forward Bloc. With that joined Communist Party of India. With that joined CSP, Kisan Sabha, Roy groups, and Anushilan Marxist, as well as Labour Party and others. So that way it became a very big organization. And with the help of that CPI, they started working there. Now, during the war time, it was found that all the leftists, they were disintegrated, because Roy never liked this idea, and Roy has made it clear that we are not going to join with you. Only the Communist Party of India, CPI, remained with Subhas, and they joined, and they started giving help to him. And while he was leaving his house, escape from India, that also was supported by the Communist Party of India, Ajay Ghosh, the Communist Party member of Gadar Party, Achar Singh Chena, who was better known as Larkin in Soviet Union, and the other parties, they only helped him to go away from Calcutta and to cross the Kabul and reach the destination. So that way he reached Kabul and started his operation. Let me now take your help with his secret service. How he made the secret service will be shown in the PowerPoint, please. Can you read, sir, or shall I have to read it out?
Could you please read it out?
Shall I read it out, or are you getting my?
Please read it out.
Okay, thank you. 1941 January, Subhas Chandra, accompanied by Bhagat Ram Talwar of Kirti Kisan Party, crossed the northwestern front border of India and reached Kabul. Is it all right?
Yes,
Is
yes.
it all right?
It is all right.
Okay. Then can I pass over to the second one? Did you get the picture also?
No, we didn't get the picture, but you can please read it out.
Jaini. Anyway, I will read out. Just a minute, please, if you can share with us.
Right.
Because some sort of technical difficulties is going on right from the beginning. So I don't have any technical expertise with me.
No, the lecture
Have
is...
you got it?
Yes, we can see now.
Shall I go for the next one, or shall I start from the beginning again?
You can
Shall
go
I go for this?
go to the next one.
Next part. In Delhi, a wireless station codenamed Mary, a very high quality channel was set up at 16 Queensway Road, Janpath. Queensway later part became Janpath, and there was the Communist Party's office was there, 16. Today is the Meridian Hotel in Janpath, and that was before Communist Party's office, where this very codenamed channel was set up. Kabul was codenamed Oliver. Berlin was codenamed Tom. Russians have regular radio contact with Tom, Oliver, and Mary. If we go to see the picture of the Kabul, there are 3 embassies were running. One is the Russian, one is the German, and the other one is the Italian. So in that way, the Tom, Oliver, Mary, and everything has been linked up with Mary. And Mary is situated in the CPI office in Delhi, 16 Janpath. So the connections are coming from there and going, exchange are going. Is it all right? Is it all right?
Go ahead.
Thank you. Before Bose's departure from Kabul to Berlin via Moscow, Bhagatram Talwar was codenamed Silver Moon. Russians used to call him Rom because Bhagatram by himself was a member of Communist Party, and Bhagatram in this role played a quadruple role with all both the Axis power and this power. So, and everybody used to suspect him, but Silver or Bhagatram's whole dedication was to the Soviet embassy. Silver Moon started his operation as a double agent with Axis and Allied powers, where his total dedication was to KGB officer whose code name was Zaman of Soviet embassy in Kabul. So the full information about the movement of Subhas Chandra Bose, his interactions with others, and what was the Germans are talking, what the Britishers are talking, because the USSR is allied with British. So all these things been noted by Zaman, the Soviet embassy, KGB officer. Is it all right, sir? Is it all right?
Go ahead. It's all right.
Silver Moon had regular contact with All India Revolutionary Committee, Mary in Delhi, and his confident agent was Manmohan Nath Kaura of Communist Party. So the Communist Party was the background, and Communist Party was gathering all the messages, and they are sending through Kabul, Oliver and Tom, they are sending it. Inouye, who was the head of the Japanese intelligence organization in Afghanistan, received Silver Moon's military information through German sources. So the Axis powers are there and Allied was there. Now Subhas Bose is reached Southeast Asia. He also in Burma, after finishing, first he was in the Singapore and then he went to Burma and opened his office. There, his link was like that. When he was linking with Mary in Delhi, that he is doing via Japanese agent, and Subhas was named as Rhino. And when he is joining with Tom in Germany, that is the German connection, but Bose is called as Elephant. This way, Bose was playing with his link from Burma during the Second World War. And the Provisional Government of Free India and Indian National Army staff were always in constant touch with some underground political organizations in India. So let us start the whole thing, how he operated. Major Swami Bose's private secretary was the controlling channels of the communication. Now I'm going for the communication, the whole communication, general communication. Now the operation. Bats. Name of the operation is Bats. Radio occupied spies, organized by spies by the Japanese. Operation was going on in Assam and Calcutta. And in all the details, Lakhan, Abdullah, who were the people, all the details I have found. And in Calcutta also was named as Owl, and there Hari Singh, Das, Kansiram and other people were working. I don't want to go to the details. You can get the idea that how the thing has started with giving the responsibility to Swami. Then coming the Raja, that's the Air Force in Calcutta. There was a air base in Calcutta, and now, I mean, what to say? We haven't studied it in that manner. We never take the interest of going through the details through this, what to say, proper information from the military sources. As a result, this Air Force in Calcutta took me such 2 years to find out the post. The post still was existing, but most of them has been destroyed. Now the travel, that is the Puri. Chota, mouth of Kaveri River. Pawnbroker, Kathiawar post 8 agents. Hat-trick, Malabar post. And if you can have a look of the India River map, how they operated from Arzi Hukumate Azad Hind. That is the strategic point. And today also, our Prime Minister announced that he is going to name 21 islands. And these 21 islands were all connected with this operation. I'm so thankful to this government today. Is it all right, sir? Did you get that?
Yes,
Have you
yes.
got it? Okay. Now, who were the main operators from different countries? Their names, otherwise you will feel that from where you have got all these things. The Russian spy or the intelligence officer, Mikhail Andreevich Alekberdov, who was known better as Zaman. In Germany, Zugenmuller and Witzel. In Japan, Inouye. In Britain, Jenkin. And who was the main player, S.C. Bose, Rome Silvermoon. He was the quadruple spy who was given challenges to all these 4 spying system or the intelligence division of the different countries. And other rest of the thing is the Zaman's report, what I got it, all these I got it from the Russian archives, all practically. And only the American archives, of course. Otherwise, without American archives, I would not have completed it. And Southeast Asia. There is another map of how they operated in Southeast Asia. And finally is the name of the archives, all are in Russian, which I have translated in English with the abbreviations and all. So that is all for today's information. And I once more again thanks our Prime Minister, because giving names for these 21 islands, I've got all the names with me, the given by Subhas Chandra Bose. And of course, I'm going to pass it over later. And I will continue my research if I be alive, because I'm pretty old and my days are numbered. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Purabi Rai, for a wonderful lecture, for giving so many details about which the younger generation are not aware. It's so nice that today hundreds of students, faculty staff members of the educational institutions have joined across the country and have listened to both you and Professor Sarkar. Thank you, ma'am. There are a few questions that have come from the audience. I would like to read out some of those questions. The first question that we have received is, how did the teachings of Swami Vivekananda influence Netaji Subhas Chandra Bose? So this question is to Professor Sarkar.
Actually, as I told that he was thoroughly well versed with the writings of Swami Vivekananda. And the first thing that he has taken the ideals of the Raja Yoga, that is the sacrifice of oneself for the motherland, the same old tradition that Janani Janmabhumischa, etc. And throughout the life, in fact, this is not much known that while in his teaching college career, early part of Calcutta, when he came back to the Presidency College, he, along with his friend Dilip Roy, they were for a short days, for a couple of months, they were on a pilgrimage to different parts of India and saw the real India in the way Swami Vivekananda had tried to send. So he had absorbed the entire idea of the motherland, and this was very much influenced by Aurobindo Ghosh's concept of mother, that other people knows their country as a combination of hills, rivers, forest, and plainlands. But I know my country as a mother, and I worship her as mother. The same knowledge, the same traditional knowledge that has been variously expressed by Swami Vivekananda and Aurobindo Ghosh. And Subhas Chandra Bose, in his one of his writings, he stated that if Swami Vivekananda would have been there, my place would have been at his feet. So it is, if one studies his life, Subhas Chandra Bose's life, the one point that draws attention to everyone is the spirit of sacrifice. He has sacrificed everything for the service to motherland. And this is the essence of the service, is motherland and the society. That remains the essence of message, Swami Vivekananda's message also. This is in a brief.
There is a related question. Subhas Chandra Bose is one of the greatest sons of India. But when he sat down to write about his earlier years at the age of 40, he called his book An Indian Pilgrim.
Yes.
Why did he call himself a pilgrim?
Yes, this is rather philosophic. He is a pilgrim to the fulfillment of his mission. And what was the mission? The mission was, of course, the liberation of India. For you just see that as Swami Vivekananda focused on the social liberation, that is the equality, the removal of all the ills of the society to make Indian society more dynamic. And the same way, Subhas Chandra Bose's main pilgrimage was not to, yes, he was on pilgrimage, but it was not in the classical sense of the term pilgrimage. It was a life's pilgrimage to the fulfillment of the mission that he called his moksha. In the very beginning, I stated that he had initiated unto him the famous classical message of Jagat Hitaya Atmanam Moksha Jagat Hitaya. So this is the moksha, that is the liberation of India, that he appropriated as his life's mission, and that was his pilgrimage.
In fact, in his book, An Indian Pilgrim, he also describes how he came in touch with Swami Vivekananda's books in one of his relatives' house. And after reading his books, he said that he found an ideal to which he can cling on. And uh, that ideal for which he worked throughout his life. It's a great message to all of us Indians in today's world. But there is a question. This questioner, Sukanta Paul, the questioner says that the present generation in this globalized society, will they follow the ideals of Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose?
Yes. But before that, I will, in connection with the earlier question, I would just want to pass on another information that the first person who had influenced Subhash Chandra Bose was the headmaster of his Cuttack school, Beni Madhav Das. And if you study Beni Madhav Das, Beni Madhav Das's life, Beni Madhav Das was a great follower of Swami Vivekananda. So it was Beni Madhav Das, his headmaster, who had introduced him to Vivekananda literature. And possibly he had seen the volumes of Vivekananda's writings in Beni Madhav Das's house also. And two of Beni Madhav Das's daughters were subsequent revolutionaries also. And they took part in revolutionary movement. So he was a man who built up the career and who influenced Subhas Chandra Bose's imagination first. So, and he had also confessed about that. He was the first person to influence me and shaped my mind. Yes, Shukanto Pal's, I know the person. Yes, Dr. Shukanto Pal's question is, what should I say? It's a general question that one particular point that I draw your attention to in the very beginning, that the problem was with our, what is called the quote unquote, the mainstream literature. Because we have the literature marginalized Subhash, and there is hardly any material available on Subhash's ideals at the school level or the level, so that young generations would feel encouraged by reading them. And the concept of motherland, how they conceptualize the motherland and what's the notion of sacrifice, all these ideas need to be introduced in the textbook at the very lower level, so that they come to know, because they know at the school level, they know that Subhash Chandra Bose is just one of the freedom, he fought for Indian freedom struggle in his freedom, and he was just one of the several leaders. But that was not the point. That was not the point. He was perhaps one of the only front-ranking leader who had sacrificed his life for the motherland. And the way he visualized the modern India, the way he took up the challenge to organize the final blow to the empire, and the shock that he had been succeeded to give to the empire actually destabilized the whole thing. So these Parakrami Shatta and his Desha Bhakti, these are the two virtues, the basic tenets of his life that need to be made available to the young generations, to the kids, in form of stories, in form of other visual forms, so that they can feel encouraged, they can feel interested to read and to know more about this. Thank you.
Right. Thank you. Thank you. Let me go to Professor Purabhi Rai. I hope that she is still there. Professor Purabhi Rai, are you there? Yes.
Yes, I'm still existing.
There is one question to you, Professor Surabhi Rai. Subhash Chandra Bose went on which secret mission, and why did he disappear?
Right. He never disappeared. According to my findings, he never disappeared. One thing we have to understand, that during the Second World War, my first question arises that why USSR, being on the other side, I mean to say a Soviet socialist world, joined the imperialist hand. Because the Axis power and the Allied powers, why Soviet went with the Allied? That's a very vital point. Usually the military analysts, they also raise that point. And nowadays they are raising it in a very distinct manner. And now, why, whenever Subhash is asking any help from them, immediately he's getting it. While he made, when after making Arzi Hukumat-e Azad Hind, he started broadcasting broadcast went all over the world, through Russia, through India, and other places also. But one thing is there, that Subhas was not allowing any broadcast anti-Soviet. So one can make it's quite easy to understand that the last days he decided from Bangkok, he went to Saigon, and from Saigon the whole arrangement was made to cross Omsk and to reach Soviet Union. So there he thought that he will be getting the help from the Soviet Union, from Comrade Stalin, and that understanding was there. Somehow or other, some resistance came from India. They never accepted that he should come back. What happened as a result, after the independence, and after the Second World War, all the important personalities, they went to organize it, their meeting with Stalin, because he won this beautiful Second World War. Stalin never allowed our first Prime Minister, Jawaharlal Nehru, to enter Soviet Union till his death. That is up to 1953. From 47 to 53, Nehru was never allowed to step in USSR. Rather, he has sent his sister, and sister came back and said that I have got a news, and she broke the news and all. And that we have to take it as a hearsay, because unless and until you have got a proper proof, you cannot accept it. But Radhakrishnan, of course, he got the chance to see, and he came back to Calcutta and spoke all about in the Calcutta University Common Room. And that's a long story. So there's something, I mean, it's a great history, and regarding this, the help of our Communist Party also, their role also. So it's a very complicated place, but he didn't get a chance to come back.
Yes, ma'am. Yes. There is one related question, ma'am, here. This is, why didn't Netaji get enough respect in Indian history, and why the mystery of his death has not been solved yet?
The mystery, what happened, it was, it's a type of combination of so many things started coming just to suppress the truth. And suppressing truth, because right from the beginning, what happened, I will just take a few minutes to explain it, that when that plane accident was announced, that time, Figgis, the then intelligent officer in the British High Commission in Tokyo, he arranged to find out the facts and figures in Bangkok and Saigon. He sent two of his officers, Finney and Davis, along with the Indian officers also. They came back and gave the report, which I've got it from the Russian archives, that it's a deception plan, total deception plan. Figgis got absolutely agitated, and about this, Hugh Toy used to know very well, because I met Hugh Toy, took his interview, he said, yes, I got that information. And that main information about the death of Subhas Chandra Bose was absolutely, they wanted to cover it up. And that coverage came by making a second report. And that second report started running that he died in a plane crash. And after that, I digged up from the Kew Gardens in Britain, from Japan, from our national archives, from other places, and Germany, all the places I went, and I went through all the archives. Nowhere you will find a definite answer that he died in the plane crash. Because it's a long, if anybody wants, he or she can read my book.
Right.
And there all the details are there.
Thank you, ma'am. There is one last question to both these speakers. Today, you know
Thank you very much.
today you know that India's 2/3 population is young population. They are aspirational young people in our country. Before we conclude this program, we want one important message from the life of Netaji Subhas Chandra Bose, which is relevant to the present day youth. So I first request Professor Purabhi Rai to give her message, and then I will go to Professor Sarkar.
When India freed means humanity freed. That was the message given by Subhas Chandra Bose. When India freed means humanity freed. And we are looking for that humanity, today. Today's generation, they must do something. They must have some self-respect and self-recognition. And as the influence of their Mormo Guru, Vivekananda, man-making mission, that should be in front of them. That it's a man-making mission, you're going to make the generation. And the generation will take it up with the confidence that yes, I can do what Subhash always used to say. And about the freedom, he said that when India freed, the means humanity freed. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, ma'am. Professor Sarkar?
Thank you. Anything else, dear?
No. Thank you, ma'am.
Question is there?
Right. I am now requesting Professor Sarkar to give his answer to one important message which is relevant from the life of Netaji to the present day Indian youth.
I think the best message for the young generation is Deshbhakti, that all of our present day youth should first try to know their country and the self-confidence in the power of the Indians, in the talents of the Indians, and finally what Netaji and also Aurobindo believed, that India has a mission to the entire world. So only if the present day youth are convinced of the full potential of India in the contemporary youth and the world to come in, the time to come in, and to do that, they need to know the power of the Indian civilization also, the way the Indian civilization served the entire universe in different periods. That will actually give a real confidence in their country, and that Netaji repeatedly believed in and repeatedly stressed to his followers that you have, as Indians, a great mission to fulfill. So in that spirit of mission, I think we need to, I would like to conclude this. We have to believe in that spirit of mission, and we have to carry this mission to the youth, the upcoming youth, since India is the most youthful country of the world. So if the youth of India believed in the mission of India, believed in the strength of their population, believed in the strength of their culture, only then the India will prosper and the entire universe will prosper. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Professor Purabhi Rai and Professor Smriti Kumar Sarkar. On behalf of UGC, I would like to express my immense gratitude for being with us and for sharing so many important thoughts with us. Thank you. Thank you very much. Namaste.